No, hard stop.
It's a hard stop.
That's 3.
Oh, remember that last time where you were like, yeah, I like being right.
yeah. Not quite.
Still, it's definitely more fade outs than we've had in our previous lists. All 2 of them.
So, part of why I ended up going like, oh, it's kind of exciting to do an 80s list because that's an era I don't think I actually like very much music from. And then, like, one song after another kind of started to stand out in my memory.
Yeah.
And I think what some of them have in common is they don't sound like the 80s, despite being the 80s. That song to me is very... it's so much about that acoustic guitar.
Yes.
In a decade that was so much about computerized bleep blop bloop synthesizers.
See, when you were coming up with this list, I feel like that's where a lot of it came, where you were like, I don't know, I want like real... When I think of the 80s, I think of like synthesizers, and I think of this, and I want like a more real sound. I want a more authentic sound. And I was like,
Yeah, so my 5 ended up being like those exceptions,
Yeah. Which is funny, because when I was putting my list together, I was like, well, you might not like my list very much then, because there's like very heavily synthy
I think it's worth noting at this point, like, this list is very much about nostalgia stuff that just like makes us go, oh yeah, that makes me feel like happy and warm and fuzzy on some level.
Yeah.
If I was gonna do like a best of 80s list, it would be a lot of really terrible sounding music.
Yeah.
Because it would be a lot of no wave bands that only ever got like one cassette tape recording full of hiss and distortion.
One cassette tape. One cassette tape.
Yeah.
Of note, we recently got a record player that has a cassette tape player in it, and we realized we have more vinyl than we have cassette tapes. We have one now, because we went to an open mic. I was like, let's buy a
Shout
tape.
out Black Crow Coffee.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. We have no tapes. We have no tapes in the house. We only have one. I'm sorry.
Hey.
Oh, sorry.
I like that tickles you.
Yeah. Remember when all we had were tapes? I do.
Yep.
Not
like
that long ago.
In the car.
Yeah. Not that long ago, I had my bright blue, turquoise, and pink tape holder in my Geostorm with me, with all my mixtapes in it. Leia mixtapes. Some of them were Leia mixtapes. Anyway. Yeah, that's a good song. Quality song. And it does slap.
And when I think of George Michael's band Wham, I think of that's as bad as it gets for just kind of like cheesy, over the top. And there's stuff that's really catchy, don't get me wrong, that I appreciate. But Wham was not super enjoyable for me in a like cringe-inducing way. Wham was just too much. So to kind of retread the 80s stuff and realize there's a George Michael song that stands above a lot of the 80s music by a lot, it was kind of a revelation.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I think I'm actually a George Michael fan. Even if it's just the song, respect for going with an acoustic-driven single in the midst of everything else that was happening then.
Awesome. So my next pick is Joan Jett, I Love Rock and Roll, because that was how I felt about Joan in the 80s.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. That makes sense.
I saw this music video, gave me the feels, man. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I really instantly loved her. Yeah.